I'm a big fan of 90s PC shooters. You know the ones. Wolfenstein 3D, Heretic, Doom, Hexen, Strife, that kind of stuff. So when a friend of mine showed me the trailer to Project Warlock, I went and bought it immediately, which is somewhat unusual for me. Thanks, Kyle. Project Warlock doesn't have much of a story. You play as some dude that both wields guns and magic. He's tasked simply with defeating the evil of the world. To do this, you'll need to travel through 5 different worlds and kill the boss to put evil in its place. And that's it. Like older games, after each area, you'll get a small paragraph of text giving you motivation to continue on. There's no videos or anything like that. Just a still pic with text. And it fits the game perfectly. The first stage of the game is a bit different from the remainder of the game. It's a stage set in a cave, and you start with only a dagger. In the first room there's a staff available to you, and from here you'll learn a bit on how the combat works. This staff uses your mana as ammunition, which may be a bit confusing at first since it looks like there's 2 ammo bars. But then later on you'll figure out that you can get spells that also deplete your mana, so using the staff should be a last-ditch effort. Personally, I always thought that the melee weapons were more useful, but that's me. So after getting through the cave, you'll enter the workshop, which I'll get to later. After you fiddle around in here, you get to choose what set of stages you want to play. Then you step into the teleporter and away you go. So here's how the gameplay works. You go from the start point and look for the level exit, while blasting anything in your way with whatever weapons you got available. The enemies typically vary between worlds, with the medieval area containing spiders, bats, and skeletal demons, whereas the Egyptian levels contain mummified creatures and hostile scorpions. Typically, enemies won't mix together, at least until the final stages of Hell, where some of them may show up together, but with new powers. As you are killing things, there's other stuff to be on the lookout for. There are 3 different colored keys that you'll need to proceed. Not every stage contains every key, and even if the keys are present, not all of them may be required to finish the stage. There are teleporters and secrets that may skip large portions of the level, with some of them propelling you right to the exit of the level, and not necessarily with a way to backtrack. Another thing to be on the lookout for is treasure. These give you some small boosts to your experience meter at the bottom of the stage. Obviously, once this is filled, you gain a level, which will net you an upgrade point when you're back in the workshop. Obviously, killing enemies will net you a bunch as well, and finding secret areas will also get you a large chunk of bonus XP. But what is leveling up good for? Well, your Warlock has 4 stats that can be upgraded. Strength, Life, Spirit, and Carrying. Strength dictates the power of your melee strikes. Life increases your health by I think 10 points per point. Spirit seems to give you the most bang for your buck, as it gives you a larger mana pool, spells cost less to cast, and they become more powerful. Finally, Carrying increases the amount of ammo you can carry. I primarily focus on your carrying capacity, with Life as a close second, because, well, the more ammo I got, the more I can kill. In addition to the upgrade points for your level, you'll also find unlock points for your weapons and spells. So let's talk about the workshop. After every set of stages, you enter the workshop, where there are 4 main places to interact with. The PC lets you configure the teleporter to the stages you want to play next. Don't think that there's any choice in the matter though, as it's only for replaying levels in which this would be useful. Every set of stages must be cleared to unlock the next set, so you can't jump around like the game may initially make you believe you can. As for the stage sets, for the first 4 worlds, it goes like this. The first 2 areas have 2 levels each, then a set of 3, and finally a set of 4 before the boss gets unlocked. The boss is always in its own solo stage. Now back to the unlock points. In the first room to the right, you'll see your spell and weapon selections. Both use the same unlock points, so you have to decide what you want to focus your points on. Once spells are unlocked, they can be used at will, as long as you have the required amount of mana available. As for the weapons, each has 2 available upgrades to choose from. Keep in mind that only 1 upgrade can be purchased. If you accidentally choose the wrong one, you're stuck with it, unless you exit to the main menu and go back in, because the game only saves when first entering the workshop. This means that you cannot save in between levels, but only when a full set is completed. This isn't a big deal though, as most stages can be completed in as little as 3 to 5 minutes. Oh, and because of this, there's no quick save slots, or really any save slots period. You have 1 game save, and if you want to start a new game, you're erasing all of your progress. Different profiles would have been nice to have. But back to the weapons. Each weapon has some interesting variations. Take the pistol for example. You can either upgrade the power to make it a magnum, or get a bit toasty by making it a flare gun to set enemies alight. I chose the magnum, and enjoyed watching enemies go splat when I blasted them with it. There's also the double-barreled shotgun. Do you want to increase the damage with the downside of requiring twice as much ammo? Or what about just making it a flat cannon similar to Unreal Tournament? These are the kind of options that you have available to you. As for spells, they're costly to first purchase, since you're using points that could be used to further upgrade your normal weaponry. But once you get them, you select them by holding the spacebar and using the mouse wheel. It's a bit strange, but it does work. To use the spells, you just right-click. You always have access to a light spell that requires you to not be running on empty, but doesn't actually deplete any power. Other abilities include what I use the most. The one that creates an orb that fires lightning at your enemies, but there's also a freezing blast, a magical axe, and one that even swaps magic for ammo. The final part of the workshop is the stat upgrades. I already mentioned the level ups, but with every 5 levels you get a perk point that you can use with a very limited selection of perks. Most of these do simple stuff like buff your health, give you more ammo per pickup, and the such. So, how does the game play? Well, it's really smooth. Graphics feel like an upgraded retro game, and everything even looks like sprites, so they don't even have a true 3D feel to them. And to say that there's a lot of blood is a true understatement. With more powerful guns, enemies will explode into bloody chunks. Each world also feels appropriate to the theme it's going against, with the level design, enemy types, and even the power-ups changing looks to reflect the atmosphere. One of the more interesting visual designs is that many of the things in the world can be destroyed. Pillars and other objects can be obliterated by pumping rounds into them, so you can use things as temporary barriers until they fall into scrap. Something you may notice is that after completing a stage, you'll see a score. The points in the game are like the points in Whose Line Is It Anyway? They just don't matter. When completing the game, there's no high score table, there's not an online leaderboard that I've noticed, so the score you see after each stage means absolutely nothing unless you write it down on old school paper. The music is pretty freaking awesome. The intro theme is, I feel, the best, but even the level themes feel great and truly bring you back to the gaming themes of old. Now, some of them do repeat a bit too quickly, but usually there'll be so much shooting that you may not even notice it. So far, it may seem like the game is perfect, but it's not. There's a few small nitpicks that I need to mention that the developers of the game may want to take to heart. For one, all the stages are pretty neat, but the fourth world, the factory, just isn't as fun. Enemies here don't really bleed, but instead you see oil and sparks when they get damaged. Secondly, the level designs just aren't as interesting as the prior stages. Many of them are just large, open areas with hulking robotic creatures, and they just aren't as fun to destroy. Although the boss of this world, the tank, is a bitch to kill, until you figure out that even though there's no manual run option by using shift, instead you can press H to enable auto run and move faster, allowing you to quickly evade its ramming attack. Seriously, I had to look up on how to kill it because I felt like I was a freaking idiot, and I had already wasted 6 lives on it. Once I learned about the auto run, it was a piece of cake. That brings me to 2 points though. For one, the game is just a bit on the easy side. At one point I had 17 lives. Dying in a non-boss stage were rare, and I usually died at bosses until I figured out its pattern. And even then, I normally died because I got swarmed by the normal enemies that constantly respawns. And yeah, sure, there's a hard setting, which I definitely want to try, but the normal game is fairly simple to complete. That second point is that some things were a bit too strange to figure out. Since there's no instruction manual, how else was I supposed to learn about the auto run? Why doesn't the game tell me I can only choose one of the weapon upgrades? Stupid stuff like this should have been explained. The other main thing is that the minimap is already fully fleshed out for you in the game, but its use is fairly limited. The game doesn't show you any doorways or anything, so if you're running in circles trying to find a locked door, that map isn't going to help. I really only used it when hunting for secret areas, as I knew where many other rooms weren't. Speaking of secrets, I wish the game would tell you during the stage how many you found out of the max possible, instead of waiting until the final tally when the level is completed. If you like finding extra ammo before ending the stage, those secrets may be optimal. And that's Project Warlock. It's a fantastic retro-style FPS game with a few minor flaws that prevent it from being considered a perfect throwback. The music is fantastic, there's a large selection of weapons, although now that I think of it, where the hell is that assault rifle that's shown on the loading screens? There's a decent variety of enemy types, and the way the levels are structured works great for the style of the game. I purchased this game for $12 on Steam, and truthfully, it was worth every penny. If you enjoy games like Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, and the such, definitely look into this one. Sure, it's got a few problems, but that's not really going to be anything that's going to cause a decrease in pleasure for Project Warlock. Final score? 9 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.